welcome to another edition of the Pitching In podcast. I'm Jason Mackey. On the other side of the microphone, computer screen, whatever you want to call it, is none other than Michael McKenry, the former Tampa Bay Ray himself. That's it. Were they the Devil Rays when you were there, Fort, or were they the Rays?
What am I, 50? Devil Rays?
You played with Jim Morris, didn't you?
I was on the Bulls anyways. I didn't even make the Rays team. I was in AAA. I was on the Mickey Mouse Club that now has been traded away to Seattle, Milwaukee, and everywhere else, and they still win. But I was on the best AAA team imaginable. It reminds me of Indianapolis now. We had Adames. We had a ton of talent. I think we set the minor league strikeout record. I mean, it was remarkable. 5th all time, including Major League strikeouts in a season. I mean, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
5th all time. We were striking out 9-10 a game. It was an absolute just joke. I mean, we didn't even hit that well, but we were just punchy and punchy and punchy in. And I was grandpa on the team.
I was grandpa.
I was.
I didn't mean to start this morning off with any sort of negativity for it. This is the.
It's okay. I had my coffee and newspaper.
Been up since 4 a.m. Your calves. So no, the big series this week. It's going to frame a lot of our discussion here, and not necessarily how the Pirates and Rays match up right now. That's interesting. Obviously, the Rays are playing great ball. The Pirates are playing great ball. They've been two fantastic stories. I want to get into more of a discussion holistically or more big picture for it on what the Pirates are doing that the Rays do, what the Rays are doing that the Pirates want to do, that whole back and forth. We're also going to talk about the Bryan Reynolds contract. As you know, as anybody who listens to this podcast knows, we got on here and then the next day the story broke. So we missed out on all the fun. But there was some stuff from that press conference I thought was really interesting. Some comments from Bob Nutting, where things stand with Reynolds, other team building options. Some of those include Andrew McCutchen, Carlos Santana. We will get to those. But Ford, I want to kick it off with the Rays conversation. We got a chance to talk to Ben Cherington in Washington, and I appreciate him doing this to the two outlets that travel to cover the Pirates. We got some time with him. And one of the questions that I had for Ben was, when you look at the Rays and look at your own team building, sort of what do you see? And he told us like the Rays and the Guardians are the two teams that they sort of think mirror what they want to do the best. Some of that's payroll, some of that's development, whatever. But I don't think it's any great secret that these teams are similar. When you look at them, what do you see as like something that the Rays do that the Pirates should do? Something that the Rays do that the Pirates do? How do you see do? I didn't mean to say it like that, but
you did say do.
How do you see the similarities?
Well, their bowel movements are great. They eat a lot of fiber, really stay on that brand cereal. And as my wife does for me every morning, overnight oats, if you've never had them, outstanding stuff. I think the Rays are a team of chance. They're constantly taking high risk, high reward trades, signings, but they always seem to be a little bit ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, they trade Willy Adames, a guy that, in my opinion, Gold Glove type caliber shortstop, a guy that obviously hit 30 homers last year for Milwaukee, but it's because they have the number 1 rated prospect in all baseball to replace him. They trade their closers, they trade their starting pitching, and they somehow replace it with better players. So that keeps their payroll low, but it keeps them very, very, I guess, competitive. Yeah. And I don't know how that would really settle in Pittsburgh if they traded Bednar and got an absolute stud starting pitcher, even if the value was better. But that's what the Rays do. I think they somehow
they have key signs in certain places.
They do.
Right?
They do. They started
for a long time.
Absolutely. They key sign some guys. They do have their cornerstones. I think that's really important, as does Cleveland. But I think that risk isn't going to work in Pittsburgh. That's where Cleveland kind of steps in. The home team, hometown mentality, because you saw last year when Cleveland went to the playoffs, the whole city will back you when you're winning in Cleveland. In Tampa Bay, not so much. I mean, they still in St. Petersburg will fill out that stadium to a certain extent, but they just do not have the following because of the location of that stadium. I do think they have the fan base better than probably ever before because they are an absolutely exciting team to watch. But I do like that thought, and I would even add in the Orioles. I just saw something recently that the Orioles, top 9 players in WAR are either trade chips, Rule 5 picks, or 1-year signers. I mean, which is kind of remarkable. They have one guy that's in the draft, obviously, that's their catcher. But it's so cool to see teams kind of rework the system, do some things differently, and try to build a culture of winning. And I think that's what they're doing, giving guys chance they believe in. There's all this new technology that can help guys really enhance and develop, and that's what Tampa Bay, I think, is miles ahead of most teams. When I was there, they were in 17. We didn't hit what they were doing until somewhere around the end of 19.
When that was in 2017 or 19?
2017 in Tampa Bay AAA, we were using more technology and were more advanced than 2019 Pirates.
Wow.
So not if that tells you anything. Yeah.
It's not shocking at all.
No, it's just the absolute truth. Like, they were just so far ahead. And that's why guys keep getting pulled away from Tampa Bay because of how advanced they are. They seem to pick the right people, but they also have great boots on the ground. And I think that's one thing that we've really done well in Pittsburgh. Our boots on the ground in the dugout are absolutely outstanding. They complement each other, and there's no.
For one of the things that I think is so crazy about the Rays that they do so well, and I think the Pirates can do well, will do well, need to do well, you are going to lose guys, right? Like, there's a reason why they made the trade with Adames. They have Wander Franco. And people are going to get upset momentarily when you lose guys because it makes sense to lose them. Blake Snell would be another case. But the thing that the Rays do that I think the Pirates need to do a better job of, have done a better job of, is winning trades. And the Pirates have certainly lost some. Like, I'm not explaining the Josh Bell trade, the Clay Holmes trade, and trying to pretend that it's anything other than a loss. I mean, those have been not good. But you can look at other trades like Adam Frazier. I like the way that looks. I like what they did with Jamison Tyone. I like what they've done with Joe Musgrove. I think the Pirates in the past, you look at Garrett Cole, you say, okay, well, we're not going to re-sign him. We're going to have to trade him. That's part of the business. You want to repurpose that asset into other things that you can't afford. And for the Astros, okay, it makes sense for them to take on Garrett Cole and his major league readiness and his ability to compete at this level right now and his salary. Okay, great. He goes there. But what you want to get back more than Colin Moran, Jason Martin, and Michael Feliz. God bless them, but that's just, they haven't been good enough. And who was the fourth one in that trade that I'm forgetting? Musgrove, Mike, Moran, and Jason Martin. Okay. Yep. Yeah, I mean, so you get a little bit of Joe. That was great. And then you also didn't bring the best performance out of Joe. The Rays are one of those teams to me that they know your players better than you do at times. I don't know how they do it. We saw it with Austin Meadows, Tyler Glasnow, and it's not necessarily like they have some sort of secret sauce or that they keep filed secret documents or whatever. They're just able to develop guys and bring levels of performance that other teams weren't. Like the Pirates with those guys were stubborn and they were insistent that things had to be done a certain way. The Rays weren't. They basically take Glasnow and they say, screw it, you're not throwing sinkers. That's dumb. You have a 100-mile-an-hour fastball with a terrific curveball. Do that. Do that really well. We think that's going to work. And it's simplicity. So anyway, I like the way they go about things, finding advantages in certain places. And they're proving that you don't have to spend a ton of money if you're smart. And it's one of the lectures that I give people around the Pirates all the time. Not that anybody needs to hear me lecture, but it's like there's nothing preventing the Pirates from being smart. You can say they're limited financially, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can still win if you're smart.
Well, so since I have a lot of insight on both of these teams and I have friends on both teams that are coaching, I'm going to use example from the Pirates and then I'll use example for the Rays. So we go out and get a Connor Joe, right? Doesn't necessarily fit on the team, but obviously it's worked out well. So what did they see in Connor Joe that just lit them up and said, we got to get him? Well, I was talking to Big Dog, and the way the ball came off the bat last year, but not being able to hit velocity, but he's been able to hit velocity in the past. So yeah, they deemed that if they could get him to stay back on his backside and work behind the baseball, catching the ball a little bit out in front, very simple. First, they check if there's any injuries or anything going on. Is there any reason why he's not be able to hold that backside and be able to get to that spot where he can really let everything play again? So they found an oddity. So a guy that hits the ball harder than major league average, finds a lot of barrel. He has a good understanding of his swing discipline and his swing decisions. So all of a sudden they say, okay, if we do this one single thing, things are going to get better. So that's a risk. And they found a lot of at-bats for him, and they found a place to play for him. Same thing when they got G-Man. They thought, hey, if we can get this guy to catch the ball out in front and make sure that he's able to stay on those off-speed pitches to opposite field gap, because he doesn't play well for our park, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because he's an opposite field guy. Well, in spring training, he pulled 2 or 3 home runs. It looked like he was going to start really catching up to that fastball because he never had a problem catching up to the fastball. He just had such an inside-out approach. So they're doing it in a lot of different ways. Obviously, Velasquez has been phenomenal. They've done some really cool things with him. But I think that's the trend that we're going to start seeing more and more as the trust has really grown within the organization from the field up, not from the front office down. Too often it's from the front office down, and that's a problem because it's the guys that are out there every single day mapping pitches, making shapes of pitches, doing all those different things, creating scouting reports, that you have to build that rapport and that trust. And that's what I think Tampa Bay has always done a great job with. When Glasnow came in, they had a plan for him 2 years before he got there. They wanted him. They were going to do everything they could to get him, and they got him, and they said freedom. Top 3 quadrants, let it eat. Don't try to throw your breaking ball for a strike ever again. The slider is the strike pitch, even though it was just a sharper curveball, and they gave him freedom. They talked him into believing in himself more and more. No more development, no more anything. You're a freak, go. And there's other, cases where they did the exact opposite, where they teach a guy a split or a changeup or something that really fits them. They're throwing a changeup at the top of the zone with guys now. It's kind of remarkable how, advanced they seem to be.
Yeah, I mean, they are largely smarter than other teams. I would be fairly comfortable saying that. I also wrote a piece on this today for anybody who hasn't read it, and I focused on some areas that I think are important. And one of them is how they're staffed too for it. And this isn't necessarily coaching or players, but even front office people. You can trace the lineage of this stuff back to Andrew Friedman when he took over. He was there for a number of years. The Dodgers poached him. It's really been the only time where, they lost somebody or whatever. They just sort of keep bumping people up. Bendix was under Neander. Neander was under, I always want to say Sullivan, but I know it's incorrect. It's an Irish sounding name. The guy that was between Friedman and Neander. It was a very brief thing, but he's still in the organization. I'll Google it in a second. But they've basically kept people in the organization, their way of doing things. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Like, we're going to think differently, think outside the box, allow people to be free. And it's an organizational philosophy that has worked for them. I think a lot of organizations should be emulating that. I think the Pirates are trying to emulate that. I mean, a lot of times when you see things say like player-centric, player-driven, like, to me, that's a businessy way of saying exactly what we're talking about here. Like, you want to do things that with the player in mind. You don't want to say, this is the way we operate as an organization, and this is the way you're going to have to conform to what we're doing. Like, that's dumb. You're literally waving goodbye to good available talent that can't fit that mold. And they did with Meadows and Glasnow. Like, those two were different than what the Pirates wanted to do, and they ended up screwing a trade royally because of it. So, like, when you hear people say, oh, we want this player-centered culture, like, that's not just fluff. That doesn't mean they're going to do it right. They still could screw it up 6 ways from Sunday. I don't know. But, I mean, that's what they're going toward. They're trying to create a plan that is individualized for the player. They're trying to, take Vince Velasquez, meet with him, have Oscar go out and watch him throw, figure out what he likes to do, what he does well, metrically what performs well, work with him physically on what he's doing. And then all of a sudden you get this version of Vince Velasquez that has been absolutely remarkable. Like, his slider's gotten better. There's definition in what he's doing. I believe with him specifically, there's been beauty in the simplicity. But it's just the Rays do that, right? Like, it doesn't always have to be more complicated. Sometimes the answer is to be less complicated.
Yeah, and you said it the best. It's individual game plans, but it has to be received well. And that's what the Rays do really well. And I think you could look at Cass.
Wait, what do you mean? Received well? Like the message has to be like
Correct. Like Vince Velasquez isn't getting new information necessarily that he's ever gotten. He's receiving it in a different way.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
obviously more receptive, right? Everybody learns differently. We all know that. So some guys need to be hands-on. They need to throw more. They need to have more than likely it's in baseball. It's guys need a chance to fail. And Vince Velasquez went into spring training knowing he was going to make the starting rotation. That's why he signed here, right? Everybody kind of having a question mark. Okay, what are they doing? What's different this time? He's had glimpses of some really incredible starts, but he's never put what he's putting together now ever in his career. He's always had the hype, but never put it together. And I think going and being able to fail in spring training and then the first couple starts, taking his licks and then coming back and saying, man, these guys do believe in me. They're working with me in the bullpen, being able to talk to him about, just the little finite things he's trying to work on. But at the same time, like you said, simplifying it because he can overcomplicate it. He's a guy that will overcomplicate everything because he's so competitive. So I think having an environment where they simplified it and helped him understand how good his stuff was without trying to do too much has really taken him to the next level. It really is that simple. I mean, that's what happened with Glass and Alamedos, right? And that's a reality that I think our staff and their staff does a great job with Shelton and Cash being at the head of it, is they're player-centric. They'll go and put their arms around you. How you doing? What's going on? And I'll tell you right now, Mackey, when I was in Tampa Bay, I had an opt-out just about every month. I had no business being there. But their front office called me every single month, asked me, what can we do to keep you in the organization because we just want you around. And they said, we can't promise you more playing time, except you're going to catch the big boys, the prospects, guys come down, and you'll get some at-bats. But we want you around. And if there's an opportunity to call you up in September for winning, we're calling you up. Like every single month, almost 29 days, they'd call. And they saw something in me to pour into these guys that kept me around. And I didn't play a playoff game. I just sat on the side. I loved on these guys. I realized how much I love the game because it was very tough not playing. But hearing that side of it was really, really cool. And that's, I think, what they do. They grab guys that help benefit all sorts of the culture and the reality of where they're trying to get to. And sometimes it's about talent. Sometimes it's about hard work. Sometimes it's about defensive metrics. And sometimes it's just about some dude's personality. And that's what I think is cool, is they're looking for every advantage possible. And I think the Pirates are doing the exact same thing right now.
So when you were in AAA, who did you play with that is like on the major league team now? And do you have any good stories from that time?
Oh, I'd have to look at the roster, see who all's there.
Like
everybody's dispersed.
Yeah.
Honeywell of San Diego was probably by far the funniest teammate I ever played with.
Really?
Yeah, like he's got a giant mullet now. He's a country bumpkin. He carried around a cannonball. No joke.
Why?
A cannonball, because that's how he warmed up.
Oh.
And he had 3 years trying to get back Tommy Johns, 2 Tommy Johns. Now he's back in the big leagues. Great human being. A guy you'd want to fight with to the death. But they just had a lot of characters, and they let people be who they were. And if some kid had talent in high A, he had high swing and miss, he was on AAA all of a sudden. And then he was in the big leagues. It seemed like that. They were not scared to push guys faster than I've ever seen, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you played the outfield there too?
I did. I played left field.
How did that go? I can't picture you as an outfielder for it.
My goal every single day is not to be noticed. It really was. That's Rocco Baldelli in camp. They got me. They saw a lot of untapped potential.
Baldelli, big Fish fan, by the way. Big Fish and Grateful Dead fan.
Well, there you go. He told me, he's like, your goal out here, McKenry, is not to be noticed. I was like, cool. And I didn't make an error, and I never got noticed. So I did my job. But like I said, it was a different year for me.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot, man. I learned a lot.
My entire baseball career in the outfield, I think, consisted of a half of a game, I want to say. I was the worst outfielder in the history of outfielders. I was terrible. My freshman year, a game against Northgate, I come in and coach tells me, like, how much have you played the outfield? I'm like, Not very much. Yes. All right. Well, you're starting left today. Like, what? You sure? It's like I could hit a little bit, but I couldn't field. And I made it through like half the game, and then they just yanked me. I think I missed the ball, probably missed several balls. And I just – people who can play the outfield well, it baffles me. I couldn't do anything. I could field ground balls. I could catch. I could pitch. Do all of that in a respectable manner, not at your level, not at anybody's level around the Pirates, obviously. But I could not – I wouldn't look like a fool doing it. Even now, I wouldn't look like a fool. But if I tried to run down a fly, I would look like a fool.
Okay, I'll tell you a couple stories about the outfield real quick and move on. So my very first start ever professionally in the outfield was at Red Sox spring training, Green Monster. Like it was like a bad joke. So
Going in
Ramirez,
a
huh? Yeah, it's just like, what is happening? So Hanley Ramirez hits a pop up, and I feel like the kid from Sandlot. I just put my glove up, and I'm like, please go in, please go in. Please go in. Please go in. And it went in. It went in. I was so happy. I threw it in, gave a fist pump. Longoria gave a fist pump because I didn't know. So that's first. And then we go to Norfolk. And if you've never been to Norfolk, the sun sets literally in your eyes. Left. You can't see anything. So the first two balls were hit at me. And I just said, it's either going to hit me or hit the fence because I can't see it. The whole first inning, I knew. So the first two balls go right over my head, over the fence. Thank God they went over the fence. I didn't see him at all. I didn't move. They showed me a video afterwards. They're like, Mac, you didn't even move. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I was just waiting to see if it hit me. At least then I would have stopped it. I didn't know what to do. I just figured it's probably over the fence since I was playing on the fence. I mean, I was terrified because you couldn't see anything. Like your goal as a hitter was to hit the ball to left field early in that ball game because you're going to get a hit because no one can see unless you want to be blind.
Yeah. So you didn't play. You didn't play for Norfolk. You played at Norfolk.
At Norfolk, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I realized that. I'm like, I didn't know he played for Norfolk. But okay.
No, not one of my many teams. Not many.
You look at your baseball reference page?
I haven't in a long time.
Yeah.
I haven't.
I look at it every day. It's part of my daily assigned reading.
Oh, look at McKenry's reference page?
Yes. I try to memorize different parts of it.
I like it.
No, I'm just kidding.
We'll keep it up. Test later.
All right. So let's get into some Reynolds talk. Some Reynolds bigger picture stuff. I am not surprised this got done, Ford. I'm going to put it out there. Like I thought it was a little bit more rope-a-dope than I thought we might see. But I think I was on this podcast, another podcast, saying, like, the Pirates want to get this done. Reynolds wanted to get this done. And there's a solution in there somewhere. I think this was a pretty good solution, frankly, for player and team. I don't think anybody really got screwed any which way. Again, I think some stuff could have been maybe streamlined in the future. But by and large, I like the parameters of the deal. And I think it makes a lot of sense for the Pirates as they move forward. Funny conversation. I can share this now because it's public. In spring training, I don't think I shared this on the podcast, whatever. So we're watching workouts, and Nutting is there, and I'm talking to Bob. A lot of stuff off the record, but this is one thing that I'll put on the record just because it was kind of funny. And so we're talking about the deal and how it's gone and whatever and why Bob's there. And so we start going back and forth about figures. And I said, okay, Bob, just spitball. Like, what if it comes down like 8 years, $107 million, something like that? And he goes, well, then the deal gets done. So, okay. What do you know? Look where we landed. I'm thinking about that. But yeah.
Nailed it.
What's that?
Nailed it.
Yep. And so now I'm going to remind Bob every time I see him. Told you. I'll tell you what you can extend Cruz for, and you can extend Keller for, and then I'll be the most popular man in Pittsburgh. No, not really. But anyway, no, I like it a lot.
Don't forget Bednar. I want Bednar.
Yeah, I do too, Ford. Unfortunately,
Hometown discount.
Yeah. Don't they have to do something else this season? Don't you feel like it? Like, I think Cruz can wait. I think Cruz will wait. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for him to sign anything now. I think
he comes back healthy. And he's something that gets done in the offseason.
You think Bednar gets done next?
No, I think
No?
Mitch Keller's the next one. I think JT Brubaker is
Really
somebody that would be. It's a smart sign. I talked to a couple different agents, including mine. When guys rehab, it's so comfortable to stay where you are, right?
Yeah.
Because naturally, what you want to do is you want to designate those guys. But if they're willing to keep him, they sign him and then give him an escalator. Like if you hit these innings, you get your third year, and that would be right into his free agency years. So they did it with a bunch of guys in Colorado. It really worked out well almost every single time. I think it's a really smart thing to do. And if worst case scenario, he's a bullpen guy, but I think he's great to have on board because he's a proven major league arm, and I think he hasn't even tapped his potential. So I think he'd be somebody that could get signed.
Devil's advocate, why, if you're the Pirates, would you do that?
Because you're looking right now at a very thin crop of starting pitching depth-wise. So if two guys get hurt
for right now,
yes.
I'd like one or two more because of the injuries to him and Burrows, but he's not going to help me this year.
Correct. He'll help you next year, and you could potentially have him for the exact same amount of money. You could throw him in AAA because he's not going to opt out.
Next year, halfway through, and if not late.
Right.
I mean, we're 14 to 16 months, so I mean, he's going to be fresh off of Tommy John surgery in June.
Correct. So if he's willing to start in the bullpen and then come out the next year to be a possible starter, I like it. The only reason I like it is because I saw how it kind of came to life in Colorado a couple different times, and it was always a benefit. Drew Smiley's a great example with Chicago. He stayed there, even though he didn't have to. He's taking less money. And I think teams and players remember stuff like that. I think that's just betting on the guy, and I'm betting on JT.
Okay. I'm not trying to be anti-JT Brubaker. I really
No. I get both sides. I mean, I was designated because I got hurt.
The argument of I want to see you recover, and we'll see where you are. I'll pick up his contract for next year by all means, but I'm not gonna give him a multi-year extension until I see what I'm paying for. I think might be
let's roll that back. So he's naturally going to get a increase in salary. So that's why you do it. So he's a 2.5 this year. He's naturally probably going to get $1 million extra just naturally in arbitration. Yeah. So what I would say is, hey, we're going to give you 2.5 again. And then we're going to give you, incentives. And then the next year we're going to give you 4.5 or 3.5 with incentives. And then go into that next year where however they want to structure it, but it benefits the team. The comfort comes from, I know I'm here. I know I'm rehabbing.
Yeah.
It's a benefit solely for the player to feel comfortable and understand he's with his people, because it sucks, Mackey, leaving a team that you're rehabbing from. Your medicals can get lost. It becomes an absolute disaster. No one's overseeing it for 3 to 4 months, if not more. And then you're telling each team that you're trying to sign with how you're doing, not another team. So there's a huge benefit. And I think we can talk into it. So that's my thought. And it's just more depth. It's a cheap depth option, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. So even in a very simple way, you're saying 2.5 plus 4.5. So we're at 7. Mm-hmm. Versus you could pick them up for 1 year at 3.
Correct.
I might go with the 1 year at 3.
Yeah, I could see both ways.
That's all I'm saying. That might be where I land. I don't know. I mean, to me, that's the kind of thing where I feel like I would want to be in a room. I would want to have conversations. I would want to see medical documents and hear from doctors and stuff that I certainly on this side of the fence don't have access to.
Tommy John's like the new kickball. It seems to happen every day at recess. It's just it's pretty normal now.
Did you come up with that one on your own, the new kickball?
I did, because it's everywhere. It's literally and guys come back from it
They come back
well.
They come back better.
Well, it's because they learn how to take care of their arm in a whole new way.
Yeah.
I did the Tommy John rehab all the way up till you actually pick up a baseball, my last knee surgery, and I loved it. My arm was as strong as it had been in years, because I had partially torn labrum for probably 4 or 5 years, and it went away.
Yeah.
Because everything around it was stabilizing so much better. So I'm a huge advocate of what that can do for guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not, and we'll pull out of the Brubaker situation here and talk about some other stuff. But
I want to hear your Bednar thought.
What's that?
I want to hear your Bednar thought.
I mean, my Bednar thought is more a suspicion. They don't have to do anything.
They don't.
They just don't. They have him for a long time in pre-arb plus his arbitration years. They don't have to do anything. Like they're not going to trade David Bednar. I'm fully confident of that. Like they're aware of what that would be. But if you keep running them out there, if anything happens, it's a crappy situation to be in if you're David Bednar. And I would like to see them not do that to a kid that is really good for their organization, for the community, does everything that's asked of him, is a wonderful, wonderful, kind-hearted person, exactly who I'd want representing my franchise. And you know what? I think it says a lot of positive things about the Pirates and where they are for them to sign David Bednar. So if you look at it, you can calculate what his number is now, what he'd be ARB 1, ARB 2, ARB 3. Boy, you could make worse bets than signing David Bednar. You know, they signed Felipe Vasquez, for crying out loud, to a contract extension. Like, it's not illegal to sign a closer to a pretty solid extension. And if anybody has produced to earn it, it's David. I have not heard whiffs that any conversations have seriously got off the ground. And that's just my suspicion that they're going to go year to year with this thing. And I hope it changes. I think Pirates fans deserve to have this guy pitching here. I think the world of him. I think the world of his family. I think the world of the type of person he is. It's just, I feel like O'Neal Cruz is probably a different discussion, right?
Is Bednar arbitration eligible this year?
No.
He's not.
I don't believe so. Let me pull up his contract status. I thought it was after next year. I'll get you an accurate answer in a second. Why do you ask?
Because he's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
If he keeps this up, he's going to be really expensive.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah.
He's arbitration eligible. So that puts them in a little bit more of a need to, because they could possibly pay him a couple million up front as a signing bonus and then bring that number down so they can do more.
I wonder, what do you think his ARB1 projection would be?
Depending on how he finishes this year, 5 or 6 million.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I do see Bednar as somebody that would take, I'm making up numbers a little bit, but if you say, we'll give you $20 million over 4, I think he probably signs that, don't you?
I do. I think he wants the years more than he does. I think he would probably take 5 and 25, to be honest, with escalators, incentives. That's the one thing I would say with bullpen arms I get is they have to earn their keep to make more money, because they'll be worth it in the end. So if he wants to do saves, if he wants to do innings, whatever it is, that's how he makes more money, and the team wins too.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I mean, I think some security for him is in order. I understand the Pirates' position. I do. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're trying to make calculated signs and spread their money around. But I mean, don't tell me David Bednar is not one of the most important people to have under contract for this team. I mean, for a multitude of reasons. Mm-hmm. And I understand why, they're trying to do things in the offseason and get out in the community and help the community, and that's all great. But a lot of these guys don't live here. Brian Hayes is going to go home to Texas in the offseason. Bryan Reynolds could go home to Tennessee in the offseason. That's great. Exactly. They should do that. You're doing events in the community and go to various elementary schools and whatever. And Bednar is going to go do that. He wants to do that. That's who he is. And he wants to give back. But man, take care of that guy. Take care of that guy. Yeah, pay him. Give him some security. So I'm going to pivot off of that to something Nutting said at the press conference that really struck me. And not only this franchise is the most important thing to me and my family, full stop, blah, blah, blah. But he said a few times about, extending more guys, that they're just getting started. And this hasn't been the first time he said something like that, although I think it's the strongest that he said it to this point. When they got Key done, said something like it's time to start pouring money into the major league roster. And you can disagree with that. You should have said well, maybe it's been time to do that for years. Okay. I would argue that they've had somewhat of a calculated plan that we're now seeing the fruits to that. But in any case, Like, you got that much invested in Bednar or in Reynolds and Key, like, and the owner is saying we're not done. I'm inclined to believe him. I'm inclined, if nothing else, like, you should be okay. That's the barometer or whatever you want to say. Like, that's what you're being evaluated on. You're saying you're not done. You're spending this money on these players. You want to win. Okay, how are we going to get there? I understand it's not going to happen right now, but I look at that one as encouraging, and I look at that two as like, I'm starting the clock on Mitch Keller, O'Neal Cruz, David Bednar, whatever. Got to get somebody done. Now, if you get one done in off season, I think that's great. If you get one, if you get Keller or Bednar done in season for something less significant, even better. But, you know, if you're the Pirates and you get Hayes, Reynolds, and let's say they get Cruz done next spring or something like that, I mean, that is a couple of huge, and sprinkle in a pitcher in there as well. I mean, that is just huge stuff. I would love that. I think the fan base would love that. I think the fan base is already inclined to give them credit and be very happy with the Reynolds deal, as they should be. I mean, the W on both sides, but, you know, I do want to see more.
I couldn't agree more. And another thing that happens when teams play like they are is coaches get snagged. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, certain guys, you know, message Oscar, you know, the pitching's been really, really good. If it continues that way, that they get the 2-year extension, you know, to Matt Shelton.
Yeah, you're right.
That's one thing. As teams, especially bigger teams, lose, they have a lot of money to pay coaches, and they haven't left yet. And I don't see it happening, but everyone has ambitions. You know, you don't know what those ambitions are, so you kind of wait and see. But everybody seems very content now, so if you can grab a hold of them, you might as well.
This is something we should have brought up earlier, Ford. I think I got distracted when I was talking about the Rays makeup of the front office, but I think it's appropriate. What if this works? How do you think that changes the front office structure? Because I think they end up elevating Charrington's role and put somebody underneath as the GM. I think that makes a lot more sense. And then you have Travis Williams. It's not necessarily in charge of baseball. I'm not sure that's the most natural fit. Like, I think Travis Williams needs to be in charge of the business, interacting with fans, you know, all that stuff. But
have we had this conversation before?
We might have. It was either off the podcast. I'm not sure, but I think
that's why Charrington came here. I think he wants to be president of baseball operations,
and I think he wants to do it all his own way, and he's doing it all his own way.
Yep. And then he's grooming certain guys around him to, very similar to how Theo did with him, to take on that GM role, because they do it collectively, and I think that's really, really cool because he can't wear all those hats. And I think some GMs try to, and you just can't. He's more of a president of baseball operations now. He's got his hands in everything. But yeah, I think that's where it's going. I think that's what he wants to do. And I think that's his biggest play of why he came here. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens at some point soon. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, the intrigue starts then who gets that role.
That's a great question.
You know, you have 3 internal candidates that I think are all very smart people. Will Lawton.
I think there's one you're not thinking of.
Really? You?
Mm-mm.
Who am I not thinking of?
I want to hear your names first. You may be. I may completely swing in.
No, that's fair. That's fair. So the 3 that I would throw out immediately are the assistant GMs: Kevin Graves, Steve Sanders, Will Lawton. I think they would at least warrant consideration. Somebody I'm not thinking of that I should be thinking of.
He played the same position as me.
Radley?
Mm-mm.
No. Same position as you. Derek Shelton.
Nope.
I'm going to be Baker. Baker is the GM?
Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, who am I to say, but
there's a reason he came here.
Well, no doubt.
And he has really big aspirations, and I didn't realize how big of a go-getter he is. And he's very baseball savvy. So
he is. He's very great guy.
I think his name would be
absolutely.
He'd be the wild card pick, but everything I've heard about him is he pushes the envelope. I mean, as hard as you can push it. So to the extent where, like, he's a guy that's almost lost his job a couple times. fighting for players, fighting for what he believes in, right, wrong, or indifferent. He'll put up a fight, and that's what you want. So,
yeah, well,
that's my wild card.
Okay, I mean, I think it's still kind of TBD too.
Absolutely, I like all the names you mentioned, and then I bring him in because I always believe in a job interview or any baseball interview, you should bring in an absolute, complete wild card and a unicorn whenever you can.
Yeah. And in my case, you try to bring in both. You can it's a 2-for-1 deal. If you bring me in, you can get a wild card and a unicorn the same.
You are built like a unicorn. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to start calling you the unicorn.
I love being fake cocky for it because I can't be real cocky. At least not outwardly. I mean, obviously I'm confident in my ability. But I portray that publicly horrendously. So the best I can do is to be fake.
You're too humble. You're too humble to even try.
I'm just too socially awkward to even try.
But at least I know what you're going to be for Halloween, a unicorn.
A unicorn?
Yeah, you look cute as a unicorn.
What's your favorite Halloween costume ever?
That's a great question.
You ever dressed up?
Probably
because I have a funny story
every single. Yeah, I think Frankenstein when I was a little kid was one of my favorites.
Ooh,
and a Ninja Turtle.
Okay.
What about
you? So this was a funny story. Probably my favorite one that I ever did was me and my 9-year-old son Ryder dressed up as Lloyd and Harry from Dumb and Dumber.
Did you wear the suits? Please say you wore the suits.
We had the suits, baby. We had the suits. I should put the picture. We had suits, canes, hats, whole deal. So anyway, we get these costumes, and I had shown Ryder Dumb and Dumber from a pretty young age, and I fast forwarded through some parts that maybe he shouldn't have seen at 5 years old. But by and large, we watched it, and he grasped it. And so my younger son Teddy watches it too. We love Dumb and Dumber. So there's this parade in Mount Lebanon. It's with his preschool. So we're walking down Washington Road and whatever, and so we've got these suits on. We're walking together. And there was a mix, and we also wore them out trick-or-treating, but it was the same effect. So there was a group of people that saw it and thought it was the funniest thing ever. They're yelling lines at us from Dumb and Dumber, cracking up. And then there was a group of people that didn't see the movie that thought that I was the worst parent in the history of parenting, that I dressed my son up like like
a gigolo.
Yes. People can make the connection there.
One of the two, yes.
Yep. So not what I was doing, clearly. But yeah, it was a mix between people that were just loving it and like, it's a 5-year-old dressed up like Lloyd Christmas. And we're going through the neighborhood quoting lines, and he's having a blast. And then other people looking at me like, what is wrong with you? What? No. So anyway, we got distracted with the bringing in unicorns. I'm gonna
have to go all out this year. Then I'm gonna have to go all out. I'm gonna have to think this through.
Come trick or treating with us, Fort. I
will.
We can all come. That's right. We'll all dress up as something together. I don't know what we can be. We'll pick something with like 7 characters. We'll just all go out together. I love Halloween as a holiday. By the way, we have in our neighborhood one of his friends' parents. They have a big party, and it's like right down the street, and all the adults get together and drink and just walk around the neighborhood, and the kids are trick or treating. What more do you want out of a holiday, right?
Yeah, I'll rent a golf cart. Let's go.
Yes, that's right. You don't even need to drive.
I'll rent a golf cart.
Walk on. Like, there's no traffic on the streets. You just walk down the street with a beer in your hand, beer in your pocket. It's good. It's a good time. Anyway, I don't hate Baker as GM. I just I want to see what these next couple of years bring. I know Sanders has been intimately involved in the draft. If those picks pan out and that becomes a thing, I could see that. I mean, he's somebody that strikes me as a future GM. Kevin Graves has been here for quite a while and is extremely bright, and Lawton for that matter too. So, but I do think, you have 4 really good, smart people who could take that role over. I do see Cherington elevating himself. That's something that the Rays have done, elevated GM, the president of baseball ops, give somebody else a chance, put someone else in that seat. But overall, it's been neat to see what the Pirates are building, and I want to see how it continues. I want to see them spend more money, extend guys. But again, as we talked about at the beginning of this thing, Ford, it's not necessarily just about, spending money for the sake of spending money, right? Like, you're making targeted ads. Reynolds makes sense. Hayes makes sense. Keller to me would make sense. Cruz obviously makes sense. You want to do that. And I want to tie it up with this, and this will tie up our podcast and this topic. But they have some guys that it also makes sense to extend, not necessarily for 6, 7, 8 years. But there are guys on that team now that need to be here. And I'm not going to ask the question, like, what if they're in contention at the trade deadline? That's way too down the road for me, based on 1 month. But, like, I look at an Andrew McCutchen. I look at a Carlos Santana, even Connor Joe. Maybe not Rich Hill as much as I like him. Like, he is 43. I think I'm just going to be content to take the performance that he's already delivered and enjoy it. My
wife had a really good observation. His number's 44. Do you think that's where it's rest in peace for Rich Hill? He retires, lays the jersey on the mound at 44.
He might change his number to 54 for all I know and just keep pitching to that. It doesn't seem like Rich Hill wants to give it up anytime soon. And I don't blame him.
I mean, why would he? Right?
Yep.
I'd love it. Just keep going. Just keep going. It's great.
Yeah. I got a good laugh with Rich after his last start. He hit 90 a couple times. His fastball was up like 1.2. Mm-hmm. And I said, Rich, do you think that, if this continues, you might be able to keep bumping up your fastball as you mature and grow into your body a little bit? And I deadpanned it. And he laughed. I'm like, I'm not actually asking you to answer that question.
He needs to remember whatever he ate, though, right? He needs to remember whatever he ate. Did he eat steak and potatoes that day?
I don't know.
Extra glass of milk? What did we do that day? We got to figure that out.
Two bowls of Wheaties in the morning.
That's exactly right.
Anyway, to the point. We're getting off topic here, and it's because of me. Koch Santana. Do you do anything right now? Do you approach them with something and say, hey, guys?
I'll even add Joe to that mix. I like that you added his name. I like what he does for a young ball club. So yes, and yes. All three yes. I don't think it would take a lot. I think they've seen what Pittsburgh brings. I know Santana wants to be here. I know Kutch wants to be here. I don't know about Joe, but I know they're all comfortable. And being comfortable, especially at that age, is something special. So they'll probably take a little bit less. Joe being a wild card for me because he's got a lot of life left in baseball terms. But I think his role is invaluable, especially with the DH and being able to hit lefties, taking quality at bats. That's not going away.
Yeah.
So they may not put up the numbers you want to see, but they're going to be very, very good. Even if you start platooning those guys, it's going to be special because they put together good at bats. You can conserve them with the DH. And Santana looks like he's 22 right now, so not really worried about him. I think Kutch needs to play a little bit more outfield to help his swing. And still defensively, he's really, really good this year.
You notice that offensive production's kind of tapered along with his playing time in the outfield.
It's hard. That's one thing I had to do in Tampa Bay is I split time DHing, playing left, and catching, and I always hit when I caught. I hit very average when I played left, and I could not hit when I DH'd. The reason being is because you're not used to it. And doing it time and time again.
That I don't think people understand unless you played the game.
Right, and he's gotten a lot better at it, and he's also taken some pinch hits that maybe he wouldn't normally take. I don't know if they're trying to groom him for later on down the line, but he had a really tough one the last night in Washington.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't know why he got it, but I know. I know him so well. I can see his facial expressions, and he didn't feel good at the plate. So that's a very tough at bat. So I think understanding that, but those guys down the line will come off the bench and pitch hit. And those are the guys you want to come up because you know what type of bat you're going to get.
That's actually something I wanted to check with Kutch and Shelton about. Like when you give a guy a day down, I mean, I could see one strand of that being like, leave me alone. I don't want to pinch hit, especially in a lopsided game. Like I want my day. I could also see that I don't want to be gone for too long. It's a lopsided game. What the heck are we doing? Like, let me feel it a little bit. Let me get up there. So I don't know what that was. You would know what Kutch wants in that situation better than me because I'm not in the clubhouse or, at least not as a player.
I always go back and look at the dugout. A lot of guys don't have that opportunity. I'll go back and look and see what they're doing. If it looks like they're caught off guard, you know where their mind was. And Kutch was caught off guard. He's been caught off guard a couple different times this year. and rightfully so. Like he wasn't the guy you would
What
think
if you see a guy up and like moving around, swinging a
he
bat,
wants to be
looking
a bat.
at you,
Yeah,
you're like, okay, I got it. I'm gonna read the room. Okay.
Yeah. And like especially in Washington, the cage is right in that tunnel. So like you can just walk right there, get loose, stay warm, all those things. But when you're on the bench and you're just sitting there, and it doesn't look like you're even like processing in your mind, because you play the game in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I could pinch hit here, I could pinch hit here. Even prior to the game, you look at it and say, okay, if we're in this situation, but down, I think we're down 6 or 7, I don't remember.
Yeah.
That's not a place you think, all right, let's bring in Andrew McCutchen to hit a double or a homer off the wall or over the wall. Like, I don't think he can put in the money ball. So you don't normally expect that.
Dropping jock, you're going to drop in the 10-run ball.
That's where you get a guy that maybe hasn't gotten to see some pitches or whatnot, or a guy that doesn't get a lot of at-bats, an opportunity. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I hope they play Kutch in the field a little bit more. I think we're going to have a lot of exciting ball to watch over the next 3 days. I'm excited for it. Really, I have a lot of respect for the Rays and what they've done, as I've said. I think what the Pirates are doing is very interesting. And, hey, for nothing else, I get to see the Trop for the first time. I've never been there. I'm excited to cover a game there. I don't know if I'm insane. Maybe I'll feel differently as of Thursday night when I'm leaving there. But for now, I'm relatively excited. And for this, I'm excited too, Fort. Thank you for doing this. Good to chat a little ball with you.
No doubt. I have one more thought for you. I'm going to leave you on this.
All right.
I would love to see Delay and Hedges start to split time.
Okay.
And the reason is I want to see how real Delay's bat's playing defensively right now. I can't see a big difference.
Okay.
I haven't looked at the matrix too hard. Hedges is a way better blocker. Game calling wise right now, I can't see a difference. Receiving right now, I can't see a difference. Throwing Hedges is better, but then you put the bat into it too. I just think a more flow when guys are, catching a guy really good, let him stay with him and flip it up. I like that, and I think it will keep Hedges healthy as well. So I'll let you chew on that. We'll talk about it next time, but I really like where Delay is at right now. He's worked his tail off. I'm not even talking about his swing. Part of that is BABIP. It's way up. So that could change.
The best catcher in all of baseball, my man.
Yep.
He really does have the best OPS. I wrote that in my article today. I couldn't believe it.
But it's something that Mackey, you don't want to have him start pressing, when he's not getting at bats. But I think they're so open with him, because I've been that guy before and it sucks. You try to do more, but I think they're communicating with him. I think that's what's so different about the staff, different about Hedges, is there's no ego. There's no fight there. And that's why I said, I think it'll take maybe a little bit of a burden off of Hedges too.
Okay.
Just that balance, you set them up for success on both ways. So just my thought.
All right.
Wouldn't be surprised to see it.
We will see. Don't be surprised to see this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We would appreciate it if you subscribe. The subscription drive has gone up. That makes our buddy Mr. McKenry very happy, and me as well. We've enjoyed the popularity that this podcast has generated. If nothing else, I enjoy talking a little ball with you, Fort. So enjoy the series, and we'll reconvene again next week. You're listening to Pitching In. I should say thanks for listening to Pitching In.